Hello, everybody. Let me share my screen. Okay, let's do a slideshow. Welcome, Sammy here. Thank you for joining me on this presentation on interoception. Notice the inside, because that is what interoception is all about. And this presentation is based on the article by Fatina S. Hindi, How Attention to Interoception Can Inform Dance Movement Therapy. And I'll link to that article at the end, along with a very nice 10-minute guided body scan that I did right before recording this. So I recommend it. It was very relaxing and only 10 minutes. So what is interoception? It's a sense. And according to people who talk about these things, there are 8 senses. So we know taste, sight, hearing, smell, touch, proprioception with the movement, vestibular, which is balance, and then there's interoception, how we feel inside. This is important for many reasons. And when we don't have our interoception kind of tuned in, it can affect us in many, many different ways, like managing emotions, going to the bathroom, knowing when to sleep, when to eat, when to rest, things like that. And this can be affected for many different reasons. People who experience challenge with this, they might be, well, all people probably experience some degree of challenge with this because some things might be more obvious and some subtle to different people. Neurodivergence can really affect interoception, autism, ADHD, PTSD, complex PTSD, all of these things can make interoception harder. So most people could probably practice interoception. This quote is saying how even though most dance movement therapists probably intuitively understand the importance of interoception, exploring interoception and the neurobiological aspects of it can bring more information to all of its applications and the ways we can teach it and share it with people. And by the way, dance movement therapy, you probably remember Bee's presentation from a couple weeks ago, which was a great introduction to dance movement therapy. And the video included was a beautiful illustration of the actual movement that happens and the therapeutic benefits, which were so clearly emanating from the people who were experiencing joy and connection and freedom as they danced. I'm not going to read this whole thing, don't worry, but this is just an example of the neurobiology that has to do with interoception. There's all these different parts of our bodies and brains that pick up different kinds of messages. And the thing that I wanted to highlight at the bottom, the pathway converges with vagal afferents that can suppress the sensory information and prevent it from reaching the brain. So what I took from that was, as we've learned about polyvagal theory, basically that when our polyvagal theory systems are are activated, if we're experiencing that fight, flight, freeze, fawn, all of that, it prevents our ability to have this intercommunication happening of all of these messages and receptors, and those messages won't go through because we are not really in a state of relaxation. So as an example of interoception, I thought it would be fun to try one exercise that I read about with the heartbeat. So this is sounds pretty simple, but I tried it before and it's actually could be a little challenging, at least it was for me. So what we'll do, you're invited to join me in this, no pressure though, is we'll take a minute and just find our heartbeat. You could either put your hand on your chest or find a pulse point. That's with one hand. And then with the other hand, we can tap out the beat that we hear or feel inside ourselves. So that's to kind of connect what's happening inside with something more physically embodied and expressed through the outside. So I'm going to find my heartbeat and then try to tap it out. And you're welcome to join me. And we won't do this for more than like 30 seconds or so, just so you know. Okay, I think I got into it there. That felt good. It's kind of trippy, you know, picturing all of this stuff happening. Okay, thanks for joining me in that. So let's see, this talks about how there's a relationship between emotional intelligence and the ability to read and interpret sensations arising from within the body. Is this challenging? It can be, but it can be learned for many people. It can get better and better. And according to this article, once we do learn about how to tune in to what we're feeling on the inside, we keep that with us. So it's a skill that as we improve, we keep it. We don't really lose it. This was a quote from the article. Emotions are made up of both the feeling and the motivation toward or away from something. So if we think of our emotions, they tend to be not just whatever the interoception sensation was, but sort of our opinion about it and how that's expressed. So maybe, let's say we feel flutters in our stomach. If we want those flutters, maybe we experience that as excitement. If we don't want those flutters, we might experience it as anxiety or fear. And I put this picture of a Buddha figure because it reminded me of Buddhism and desire and aversion. So you have this inside physical sensation, and then whether we want it or don't want it, it kind of becomes an emotion. And I realized at the end of this article that it was actually sponsored by people who are studying with the Naropa Institute, which is a Buddhist school. So not surprising it has Buddhist themes. Oh, just ignore that mobile project. That does not have to do with the presentation. So this is talking about the different parts of the brain, the amygdala, where we experience hypervigilance, PTSD symptoms, and that we can integrate our feelings with our body, and that this helps in the treatment of PTSD. The dance gives rise to the feelings, and with interoception, we can bring awareness to identify and communicate those feelings with conscious awareness. So this is sort of like the process of narrative therapy. We understand what's happening and we can shape it and give meaning to it, a bit like existentialist therapy as well. Now, to bring it back to dance movement therapy, Mary Starks Wittenhouse, she was very focused on kinesthetic awareness. So the importance of how it feels to move. So we're moving, how does that movement feel? And then Blanche Evan, who also worked in dance movement therapy, she was very focused a little bit more on the physical body and how the physical body was reacting in a biological way, especially the spine. There's that quote, "You're as healthy as your spine," which is an ancient proverb. And I think that it resonates with me, although at the same time, I'll talk more about this later, but I think it's important to consider people with different physical abilities and disabilities, and that there are many, many ways to be healthy. So authentic movement doesn't talk about the word interoception, but is basically built around interoception. It's a movement that is very much concerned with the witness and the mover. So again, a very Buddhist idea of there's something happening, and then there's awareness of the thing happening. There also is a strong emphasis on inner listening. And I like that it talks about images and sensations as well as feelings, because feelings, that word might be hard. Alexithymia, which has to do with not being able to feel or identify our feelings and is common to certain neurodivergent um, ways of processing, but could happen with anybody. So I like that bringing in images and sensations gives these other entry points to interoception and becoming conscious of what's happening. And this quote here, written by Adler, talks about the different levels of understanding ourselves and feeling ourselves. And once we do that, we can better understand and feel others. And when I read it, it reminded me a lot of the prayer of St. Francis, which I won't go through the whole thing right here, but if you feel like saving it, I left it there for you, or take a screenshot. And then here we have St. Francis with all the animals. But this quote says, I long to be seen, narcissism. I feel seen, trust. I long to see myself, ego. I see myself. That's like good interoception, healthy ego. I long to see another, love. I see another, compassion. And I see us both as one, union. So, like one line from the St. Francis, I seek to love rather than to be loved. Why not both, right? Okay, next slide. The moving cycle, that is another DMT, dance movement therapy paradigm that was originated by Christine Caldwell, very influenced by Gendlin's focusing. And there's 4 stages to this, and I paraphrased each one. So first, we become aware of sensations slash feelings slash images. Second, we embody them. So for example, oh, I feel an inner tension, so I'm going to make fists. 3, appreciate the satisfaction of this integration. Look, sorry. I'm feeling the same inside as I'm acting outside. So there's like a good feeling about that. It's not like there's a split anymore. We're healing the split between the inside and outside. And then last but not least, having more freedom to respond rather than react. And this is something that they practice in the practice of the moving cycle or interoception. So next time I feel this inner feeling, I have a little more choice what I'm going to do with my body. Now the article suggested stages of improving a person's ability to increase their interoception skills or increase a practitioner's ways to help a person get there. So establishing curiosity about the mind-body connection, tracking sensation, putting it into words, looking at patterns of those sensations, and then having a new awareness going forward. As for criticism, just like with other trauma therapies like EMDR, if the client isn't really resourced in their life, doing something like this might cause them to feel overwhelmed or to be destabilized. So if someone's going through crisis or doesn't have a lot of support or skills, bringing too much attention to what could be really tumultuous inner states might not be the most supportive for them yet, without sufficient safety around it and tools and support. Another criticism. So obviously there's a whole range of physical and cognitive abilities and disabilities. And in the guided meditation, for instance, that I'm sharing with you, if a person doesn't have access to parts of their body, if they're, for example, paraplegic or quadriplegic, or they have nerve issues, or maybe they're recovering from a stroke, there might be parts of their body that they can't access, or somebody might not have a certain part of the body. So I think, yeah, just being aware of that. And then also different cognitive abilities, if you're thinking of perhaps young children who don't yet have the language skills, or people with different cognitive disabilities, there will be different ways for guiding them towards having more freedom to choose how they move their bodies or use their bodies or experience their bodies. But again, I think taking it back to, less conceptual, more practical. If you look back at that video that we posted 2 weeks ago, it's really, it doesn't need to be so conceptual. It can be a very simple human physical movement. And she said in that presentation, movement is our first language. So all of this information and the biological and chemical and linguistic deep dives into interoception can be really expansive, but it doesn't always need to be part of the experience of facilitating interoception for actual humans, which is beautiful. So thank you for joining, and I will link this 10-minute body scan, which is quite relaxing and shorter than many of them, which can be like 20-30 minutes. So just a quick one there. And please reach out with any questions. I appreciate your listening and being here today, and wish you have a beautiful rest of your day.